We work with thousands of people through our disability services each year, and we're always keen to do more. I mentioned earlier today that to live a life of significance and influence is to follow your calling. It's not just a matter of accolades, but the impact you have on the people around you and the legacy you leave for others. To talk more about this and other things, we're joined by Stephan O'Doherty. Stephan had a very successful career in television and radio in the 1980s and a successful career in state politics in New South Wales in the 1990s, where he held a number of shadow portfolios, including that of Shadow Treasurer. He resigned from his role in 2002 to take up his current role as CEO of Christian Schools Australia and is also chairman of Hope Media in Sydney, overseeing the work of the radio station Hope FM, whom we're very supportive of. Welcome, Stephan O'Doherty.
Thank you, Keith.
Look, you've a celebrated career in all that. You hosted, I think, the Drive programme, a Drive programme with 2GB, which is a very significant radio programming on your station. And you also reported on ABC's 7:30 report and so on, the 10 network. We mustn't mention all these programmes, incidentally. but in all of that, were you a Christian through all of that time, or did you? When did the Christian faith become real for you?
About halfway through my time at 2GB, I became a Christian. So I have two careers there, you know, one as a non-Christian, and not just a non-Christian, actually a fairly aggressive atheist in the Richard Dawkins mould in those days. I was, you know, full of self-pride, interest, and believed firmly that it was just me and the universe. I was alone. At the end of the day, I was alone in the universe.
So you're intellectually convinced of the non-value of Christianity, as it were?
Yes, quite right. And in fact, there's I don't know, for people who've been Christians for a long time, maybe they don't know how that is for an atheist. You take some sort of sense of perverse strength from the fact that there is nothing else out there. And it's a very strange way to live your life.
So what happened that changed your life?
I think love intervened through the love of Georgina, who's my wife now. But she was a Christian, and I couldn't put that together. We were playing in a band together, and I'd had a relationship that had broken down, a very significant relationship, and I was pretty much, you know, at a very low ebb. Also, when you work in media, you're constantly feeling under pressure, and you know that you have very few friends at the end of the day. You're asking yourself, what is there that's of lasting significance? And if you work in media and you see that your job will come to an end, I was in my mid-20s. I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life if my job came to an end, and there was only one rating survey away from that. And if your significant relationship has broken down, you ask yourself, what is there of significance that lasts?
So faith becomes real, and you entered politics. How did that come about?
Well, as a Christian, having given my life to Jesus, having said to God, I can't fight you anymore, I now accept that because Jesus died, I can have new life, and that's the only thing of significance that will be left in the end. But what a wonderful gift. Having accepted that as a reality in my life, I then tried to live about my life as a journalist, being a Christian. And they'd asked me, Bruce Baird actually asked me, the father of Mike, the current Premier of New South Wales, asked me to speak at what was then the Governor's Prayer Breakfast, 1,200 people in attendance, and I prayed about what to say. And the government was going through turmoil, as it always is. And I ended up saying to the people, you know, if we want godly decisions from our governments, if we want significance to happen in our community, people to be looked after, people with disabilities and so on, then people who know God ought to put themselves up for election and be part of making decisions. Well, within a couple of weeks of that message, there were 2 seats vacant in the New South Wales Parliament. And I had a strong sense that God was saying to me, well, what about you?
Do it. So you don't do that forever, because you then come to a point where you resign to go into Christian schools. Just give us a little picture of what that's about.
As the Shadow Treasurer at the time, and having been the Shadow Minister for Education and also Disability and Community Services, I was frustrated by the inability to get things really done from the opposition benches. You can influence policy, but you can't get things done. By the way, being in Parliament is not just about the very big things, it's about the very small things. It's, as a local member, you become, if you choose to be, a means of support and hope and help for people in all situations in life. It opens you up to understanding where the community's heartbeat really is. But as a person interested in better outcomes and big picture stuff, I felt a strong sense that Christian schooling was really able to build up a generation of people, generations actually, who would go into their own professions, understanding that to use their gifts to serve was what God wanted us to do. And you probably know that the verse that has become my mission verse, really, is Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 1. And Paul says, look, as a prisoner for the Lord, I entreat you, he says, live a life worthy of the calling you've received.
So, look, somebody's listening. You're now doing this work with schools. You've been involved in politics and broadcast. Somebody's saying, I'd like to do something, but I'm a bit uncertain about what I should do in stepping out in faith. What would you say to them?
What has God gifted you to do? What's the thing that really presses your buttons? Where do you think you can make a contribution? When I became a Christian, I said to the minister at the time, well, now that I've become a Christian, do I have to go to more college and then end up in Africa as a missionary or run a parish? He said, what are you doing? What were you when God called you? I said, well, you know that, Silas. I'm a broadcaster. He said, well, go and be a broadcaster, but just do that with a sense that God has brought you to this work and it's significant to him that you do it right.
Stephen, you're involved in so many things, and I want to honour you for that and say that those things are valued by the wider Christian community. That's why part of the reason we have you on, we want to bless you for that and say we hope that the future opens up even more doors where your gifts can be used. So thank you for sharing with us on our show.
It's very kind, thank you.